Restoring Darkness is brought to you by Evluma, illuminating the pursuit of dark skies.
Welcome back to the Restoring Darkness podcast. On today's show, I'm honored to be joined by Jin Bai. Jin is a fourth-year Ph.D. candidate in the Fisheries, Wildlife, and Conservation Biology program at NCSU and studies the drivers of urban bird diversity. He has extensive experience designing, coordinating, and assisting citizen science projects, including organizing the Triangle Bird Count. Jin co-founded City Bird with a mission of documenting bird window collisions and advocating for bird-friendly college campuses in the Triangle area of North Carolina. Additionally, Jin is a board member of the New Hope Audubon Society, a local nonprofit chapter of the National Audubon Society, covering Orange, Durham, and Chatham counties in North Carolina. And they are dedicated to local bird conservation. To see his work, I want you to go to www.citybird.org, spelled the way it sounds, citybird.org. That's an easy one. And then his social media and other websites, and that will be posted to the Restoring Darkness podcast website. Now, folks, what is this movement about? Well, you know that 70-odd lighting distributors and 25-odd lighting manufacturers got together and created the Lighting in Darkness Foundation. What's unique about this foundation? Well, we're lighting people. We're not environmentalists. We're looking to reduce, mitigate, and eliminate light pollution. We're looking at ways to measure and test for light trespass. And we believe in lighting. We're lighting people. But we believe in responsible outdoor lighting at night. And so we're working towards these goals, and we're helping out with different advocates in the field like Wasatch Valley and the Save Wasatch Back Dark Skies. If you have a local problem in your community, you can contact the Lighting in Darkness Foundation, and we'll help you. Go to restoringdarkness.com. You can help us, of course, by while you're at restoringdarkness.com, you click the donate link. And you support our movement and what we're doing, lighting people, solving the light pollution problem. Welcome to the Restoring Darkness podcast, Jin.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
You know, we've been looking for someone to talk about birds for a while, and it's been hard to find, actually. We've asked a bunch of people, but not everybody wants to do a podcast. You know what I'm saying? My first question to you is, why should we care about birds?
Yeah, so birds are a very important part of the ecosystem. They provide a lot of service to people. They can control pests. They eat a lot of insects that can be harmful to agriculture. They're also part of the economy. You know, a lot of people are birders, bird watchers. So having that enough sustained bird population also sustain the economy, local tourism. People go to different places throughout the country to find birds. And also there's some recent kind of literature coming out in the psychology field, also suggesting that living close to nature, listening to bird songs and bird calls also helps like a mental well-being as well. So there's kind of a lot of ecological benefits as well as like economic and health benefits to people.
You know, within this movement of night preservation and light pollution abatement and so on, what we're finding is that, you know, people were worried about the turtles and the bats. But to me, the real grotesque part of this is the amount of birds that die because of light pollution. How important is light pollution mitigation to your work?
Yeah, so in terms of bird window collision or bird building collision, lights definitely play a very important role, like driving that collision. But it's also a kind of intertwined relationship with glass reflection. So there are kind of two mechanisms of how lights directly or indirectly leading to bird window collision. The first being directly at night, the lights would disorient birds. So birds use stars or the moon to navigate. So those light sources would disorient them, and they would directly collide with a built-up structure like a building. And that's the direct mechanism. But the second mechanism is that the birds are attracted to the light, and then they are like a disproportionately concentrating in urban areas. So they may not directly collide at night, but the next morning, when they are about to foraging and then take off again, they forage along trees and the habitats, the remaining habitats in the urban environments that is full of reflective surface, like windows. So then they will die due to reflection, and they collide with the window because they couldn't distinguish what is reflection or a real habitat. So they both contribute a lot, both the light and the glass, and they're kind of intertwined together, causing bird window collision.
In Toronto, they basically make buildings out of glass now. The structures that they build for condominiums are almost entirely aluminum and glass from the all the way from the ground, 70, 80, 90, 100 stories of glass and aluminum. So is the problem, I guess, is getting worse on the glass front and worse on the light pollution front.
Yeah, yeah, both are issues that need to work to solve this issue. Because if you just solve the light, which is still important, doesn't treat the windows, that will still, causing collision. Because not all the birds will directly collide with the building at night.
And so when we had more brick buildings, this was much less of a problem.
Um, I mean, I think the overall is reducing the glass area or some kind of architect design that will reduce the reflection will help. But in terms of how light directly causing collision, the building doesn't even have to have windows to cause collision. So because during night at night, the light disorient them, they could collide with a structure just complete just bricks or just a man-made structure. Without a window, they will still collide.
Mm.
But during daytime is when the glass matters.
Ah.
Yeah.
So
So for example,
at night, it's not when they have light inside the building. That's not those are two separate problems, is what you're saying.
I guess that also comes to the question of how the light's coming from, right? So I was kind of referring to the lights, for example, from 9/11 tribute. They have the light beams
Hmm.
throughout to the sky that will attract hundreds, even thousands of birds coming down to the ground or the building level. So those lights are definitely harmful. They will collide with structure with windows or not. Um, but other kind of lights, the indoor lighting also matters. There's not a lot of research on this. There are a few research on examining how like turning lights on and off indoor can have impact. There is one study coming from Chicago. It's the Mac McCormick Place Center in downtown Chicago, and they have this long-term data about 20 years of monitoring bird window collision. And the first 10 years, they have the building light completely lit up, and then the second decade, they reduce about half. So only half of the building are light, and they found that the collision was reduced about like 50 to 60%. So there is some effect from indoor lighting as well as like kind of outdoor projecting upwards lighting. Uh, yeah, both.
So so there's a multitude of factors going on here. What is it about the birds and this 9/11 light or the light from the Luxor in Las Vegas or these lights that go up into the sky? What's attracting the birds and why can't they get out of the circling of it? Because they basically circle until they run out of energy and die, right?
Yeah, or they just get so attracted they will go because they migrate at night at a high altitude. The light will then just kind of just flying towards the source of the light to the building level, kind of much lower altitude, and then can collide with building or just die of exhaustion. But I don't personally know why is that. Is that beyond just the fact that birds use light source like stars to navigate?
Mm.
But so for some reason they are just attracted to those light source and cannot uh, like get around it. So the same thing also goes for like even before kind of extensive urbanization, lighthouse is also a source for that. Like a
Mm.
lighthouse in a
Sure.
really remote area can also attract birds, and then they could die of exhaustion or collide.
The what's maybe you won't know the answer to this question, but it's interesting to me. So birds, you say, are orientating themselves to the stars or to celestial bodies, the moon, and these types of things. And we know that turtles hatch and look for the moon and then go to the water, right?
Yeah.
How does evolution embed this into the brains of simple creatures like that? Like, how do they know? Like, are birds taught by their parents to look at that's the Milky Way over there, boy? You're gonna follow the Milky Way, and that'll take you to the island where all the good food is. Like, or is it just that they're born with a relationship to these um, celestial bodies and the electromagnetic field of the earth or whatever? Are they born that way with a relationship to the stars?
I believe I don't know too much about this subject, but I believe it's born with it. It's not through like learning because most birds after they're hatching, they become independent. So I don't think they would just learn from their parents.
Some we assume as the highest form of life on earth or the most intelligent form of life. I don't know, octopuses and cuttlefish are pretty smart, but and whales and that, but so we always assume that everything is taught, right? And I wonder to myself, sometimes I wonder to myself, Jen, and I know we're going to get back to birds in a second here, but I wonder if all this light pollution and the inability and radio, like light, sound, and cell phone towers, they're all waves. These are just different kinds of particle waves, right? And I'm wondering if maybe maybe it's messing with us too, you know? Um, and when you're looking at a screen a lot, that's also kind of a form of light pollution too. And so I wonder to myself if maybe this light pollution problem is far more pervasive and damaging than we think. You know, I
Yeah.
I wonder doing all these
Could be very
podcasts.
subtle. Yeah, yeah. Could be very
Yeah,
subtle. We just couldn't detect.
yeah, like what, like maybe, like have we measured people's sense of awe declining since 1950 or something like, you know what I'm saying? And that's why there's all this, psychedelic drugs and marijuana legalization because people don't have access to a sense of awe or inspiration like that. I often wonder. And then when I hear you telling me about the birds, whether it's magnetic field or they're born with this orientation, it it makes it, to me, it elevates the urgency of the issue. Um, so when you're doing your work, have you noticed any successes? Can you tell us any projects or anything you've worked on that where there's some good news?
Yeah, so I did have some success in terms of treating glass. That was part of the City Bird project. We identify a few bus shelters that have clear glass, and that was killing a lot of white-throated sparrows. They overwinter in North Carolina, and I seek that opportunity and apply for a grant on campus called the Sustainability Fund. And then using that fund, I got funded and to purchase a bird, feather-friendly product that are like a dot pattern, so that will break the. So in this case, it's not reflection. That's another thing. Reflection is the case mostly, but for like bus shelter, it's because the clear glass, the birds can just see through the habitat on the other side. So it's not a reflection, but can see to the other side. So I was putting those markers so the birds can recognize that's not possible. So so far we haven't seen any collision after the installation, which was we installed it about 2 months ago on three different bus shelters on NC State campus.
So you've heard, you obviously you know, but like the birds of prey have the most effective eyesight of all creatures, I believe. I think that's correct, is it not? They can see the furthest and the clearest.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I think most raptors have pretty good eyesight. Yeah.
yeah. So how are birds seeing differently that they are confusing glass with just a clear air? Like, what is it about the way they see? Do we know that?
I do have some theory. So again, this is not like I think well known or well established. But what I can kind of differentiating between like a human or a bird, at least one aspect, is that their eyes are on the side. So we have
Mm.
our eyes in the front, and their eyes are on the side. And when we have eyes like in front of us, it creates a lot of overlap. Like our vision from the left eye and the right eye overlap a lot in front of us. And I believe that helps the perception of depth or like perceive something that's three-dimensional. That overlap helps. Versus the bird's view, they're still good at locating things, but they may not recognizing something that's actually two-dimensional versus three-dimensional because we will be able to tell this reflection because it's now actual three-dimensional object, right? It's just on the surface. But maybe for birds, it's confusing because they don't have that. But that's just a theory. Again, I'm
And
not completely sure if it will be the cause.
the light pollution, is it? You mentioned that light from inside behind the glass can be an issue, and then other light pollution from street lights or can attract.
Hmm.
No, sorry, from the sort of the Luxor or the World Trade Center Memorial, 9/11 Memorial, that can attract them and cause them to be exhausted or smash into buildings. Is there other forms of light pollution, say roadway lighting through a wilderness area that's 5,000 Kelvin and high output? There's distinct issues that you've observed with that kind of lighting?
I don't know anything particular if it is a major impact, but I think in a rural area, if a car just driving by, there probably have some maybe subtle impact. Like there should be some disturbance as well, not just for birds. I was thinking like even insects or other any creature that live along the roadside maybe are resting could be disturbed temporarily. The effect
Mm.
probably is a minimum, but I think there is an effect kind of disturb like their the rhythm of their like when to wake up and when to sleep.
Hmm. It's
I
interesting.
think
I
yeah.
I live on a farm, and a lot of people, Jin, they don't realize how loud cars are as well. Like you
Yeah.
can hear a car drive if a car is driving, 60, 50 or 60 miles per hour on a road, on a country road, and you can hear it from a long way away coming. It's very, very loud, and a truck is even louder. And so there's this
Yeah.
combination of light, street light, noise, all these different things. One of the things that I've always thought of, which might be part of the problem, is that in the past humans were a diurnal species. And I'm not talking about, thousands of years ago. I'm talking about 75 years ago or even, 80, like maybe 50 years ago. And we seem to be advancing into the night as a species and
Yeah.
and taking out, eliminating the night because we're diurnal. So we want lights on everywhere, right? When we're out at night. And I think this is a growing, increasing phenomenon. That the human activity at night just seems to increase and increase and increase it, more and more and more. Is that part of the problem as well? We're just out and about at night more?
Yeah, I mean, especially I can think of people could view big city when there's so much lights lit up the sky, they see that as prosperity. They see that as, well-developed, high economy, good economy, like that kind of symbol is kind of integrated into most people's mind when they think of big city or like well-developed country. So I think that's definitely kind of part of the problem. And as you point out, that more people are active at night, those things. And probably also part of it, when I especially advocating for like a lighthouse policy or even at a specific building level, security is also a kind of concern. I think part of this
Hmm.
question,
Sure.
when you want to turn off lights, people may want to do it because they feel like insecure or, crime risk, that kind of stuff. So,
Well, I mean, you know what? Lighting is neither the cause nor the solution to crime. I've said
yeah,
that
yeah.
many times, and at the Smithsonian exhibit, which Lights Out, which is a new exhibit in Washington D.C. Talking about light pollution and night preservation, they put the famous picture of North and South Korea on the wall, right? So if light pollution is a literal like an indication of wealth or something that we need to decouple from. We need to decouple light pollution and success. Light pollution is not successful. It's pollution.
Yeah.
It's a real
Mhm.
pollution. and it causes problems. And we need to, if we could find a way to shame light pollution. So, I had a customer just the other day beside a beautiful field. There's an office building, and it's in a smaller town in Ontario. And there's his office building is sort of at the end of this road, and then there's like a meadow right there. And some kids came and sprayed graffiti all over the side of his wall. And now he wants to put projection floods on the side of his building, right, out to onto the field in the meadow. And I'll tell you, man, I'm the host of the Restoring Darkness podcast. I'm the interim executive director of the Lighting and Darkness Foundation. I could not talk sense to this guy. He wanted lights on the side of that wall of that building, and he didn't care. He was convinced that lights would stop the graffiti. And I said, well, there's no evidence for that. We don't know. And I'd love to sell you some lights, but why don't we do this kind of light where the light shines down? And no, I want to just blast the light out there. Just keeps everybody away. And
Yeah.
but the problem is we have a straw man, Jin. He doesn't have to prove that that's going to work.
Hmm.
I have to prove that it won't work definitively.
Yeah, that's true.
And so that there's a straw man argument we have here where the people that want to light pollute assume that what they're doing makes everybody safer, is better for everybody, happier, everyone likes it, no one's going to have a problem with it. And you have to prove with peer-reviewed journal studies that doesn't work, or they're not even going to listen to you. When in fact, I think the responsibility, we should try to find a way to switch that responsibility on the people that want to do this kind of thing. I don't know if it's possible.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me another, I think maybe a virtual talk I attended to related to this. They were also recommending like at the residential yard level to using lights that are only downwards. And they were comparing not just the benefits of reducing the light upwards, but actually having the street light downwards towards the ground will actually help you see clear if an actual intruder come to your house. Because when you have the light so bright up towards different directions, it's kind of like when you look at your phone in the dark, you cannot see the road anymore. It's kind of that effect.
By contrast.
So when you so when you have the light actually only towards the ground, even though the overall surrounding environment is relatively darker, it makes it easier to spot someone actually intruding their property. So it's actually better of detecting crime and as well as protecting for other animals as well.
And lots of research has proven that more streetlight causes different kinds of crime. So lighting will get homeless people to move to somewhere else. It doesn't find them a home. Okay?
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Like lighting will remove vagrancy. Okay? It will get vagrants if you shine a light on an area where vagrants are sleeping or there's a tent city. If you put a bright light on them, they'll move. You know why? Because light pollution kind of hurts people. They don't like it, right? So it's almost proving the point, right? So it's like, you can get rid of homelessness and vagrancy, but with lighting, well, it doesn't get them a home. And in fact, it kind of proves the point, Jen, because light pollution hurts people. That's why the homeless people move somewhere else when you shine LED lights on them, because it's not comfortable.
Yeah.
They don't like it. Neither does the wildlife, right? And the situation is exacerbated by LED, Jen. It's made way worse. Has anybody in the bird studies area made any comparisons, say, between HPS, the old lighting system we used to use primarily in outdoor lighting, and 5,000 Kelvin LED? Has anyone observed the difference with the birds?
I'm not aware of any study like specifically looking into that, so I'm not sure if anybody has looked into that. Like I say, I think just in general, we all know that light disorient birds, but the actual study, I think, directly linking that lights causing bird collision, that study is not that much out there. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a harder thing to study because, like I said, they're intertwined with the glass. So
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to disentangle whether it's because of the glass or the light, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
So, with light pollution, Jin, and I'm going to get your final thoughts here in a second. We've gone from beautiful to conspicuous to grotesque. When they first put the Eiffel Tower up, I'm sure it was absolutely stunningly gorgeous to any person that would ever saw it. And now in the 80s and 90s, we went to a place where things were starting to become conspicuous. And now with the dawning of LED lighting, light pollution has become a serious environmental issue. And it's time for us to move it into the realm of climate change and plastics in the ocean and these other problems. Jen, do you
Yeah.
have any final thoughts for the Restoring Darkness listeners?
I guess some kind of final thoughts. First of all, where I am in Raleigh, there's some movement pushing lights out. There's a movement of Lights Out Raleigh,
Mm,
Lights Out Chapel Hill. Those are just targeting governmental buildings, but it's still a good start and raise some awareness about this issue.
mm,
And and even going through like some of the kind of comprehensive plan of a city. I recently went into some of the plan in Raleigh, and they actually have a designated section talking about reducing light pollution. So I think there's some hope, I guess, more and more awareness, and at the governmental level, they are recognizing that this is something they need to address. At the city level, at envisioning their future, they should incorporate into that lights out movement. And I think throughout the U.S., a lot of big cities have been part of this lights out movement, uh, primarily initiated from like a different Audubon society, uh, especially in cities that are part of the central migration pathway. Uh, and there's also maybe another thing to add is there's a resource called Birdcast, which is a website, uh, Birdcast, CAST. So just similarly to weather forecast, they do migration forecast. So it's using
mm.
the same radar system because birds move faster than clouds. They can recognize this birds moving, not clouds moving. So they are able to detect how many birds are passing through an area and then running some model predicting the migration intensity in the following nights. So those are really useful too in terms of if a city or a building is not willing to turn off lights like during migration season throughout the month, but if they are willing to turn off just a few single nights at really high intensity of migration happening, that will still help. So that kind of resource will like generate alerts like for a given city, like maybe October 1st is the highest migration intensity, then certain building can turn off lights will help, even if it's not the entire migration season.
Not to open it back up, but you just
Yes.
made an amazing point because I've been, and I think we're really going to come together on this one right now and on what you just said there, Jen. So I've been advocating for a long time to the lighting industry that the number one case for digital lighting controls is not inside lighting, it's exterior lighting. There's
Hmm.
so many ways, like forget about, night preservation and birds. We'll get to that in 1 second. But there's so many different use cases for advanced, whatever you want to call them, digital Bluetooth mesh network lighting controls in municipal and outdoor street lights. And this is a beautiful reason right there. You just said it. Like a city planner could say, "Oh, geez, we got a migration tonight. Okay, just put out on our Twitter that we're dimming all the street lights down to by 90% for tonight, and here's why: because the black-addled dark crow is coming over in a horde." This would be exciting for people. People would get excited about this. Is smart you know
Hmm.
and it's such a wonderful way to add that if you could make an Uber for light pollution for birds. Here come the birds, turn off the lights, birds are gone, now turn your light pollution back up. That would be a good
Yeah.
step in the right direction. And lighting industry, I want to tell you right now, lights out Durham or Chapel Hill or anybody talking about light pollution, this does not mean less lights. It means more lights. We're going to sell more lights. They're just going to be different kinds of lights. And if you want to do a good exterior lighting system, which is produces less light pollution, you have to use more lights. And lighting industry, listen to me if you're listening. It means we have to take out a lot of the lights we just put in the last 10 years. Who's going to do it? We're going to do it. The lighting industry is going to do it. What are we waiting for? So go to restoringdarkness.com for the Lighting and Darkness Foundation. This is the lighting industry's move into the night preservation space, into the restoring darkness space, into the dark sky space, whatever you want to call it. And if you're there and you don't know what to do and you got your credit card in your pocket, why not click the donate link and give us a little bit of money? Because we could use it. Trust me. We got a lot of stuff we're working on right now. If you have a light pollution issue in your neighborhood, in your area, you have a light trespass, you can contact the Lighting and Darkness Foundation by going to restoringdarkness.com and reaching out to us. And of course, I thank you all for listening. I've had a wonderful conversation with Jin today. It's been fun. I've been trying to get a bird person on for a long time, so it's great to have him. And his Instagram, his Twitter, his own personal website, and of course, citybird.org will be posted to the website. And is it birdcast.org, Jin?
I think maybe birdcast.com.
.com. Well, Scotty will look it up
Yeah.
in the interim, and we'll make sure it's posted to the restoringdarkness.com website. Folks, I love you guys out there, all you listeners and everyone around the world. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.
Look no further for dark sky friendly products than Evluma. Since its first product launch, Evluma has carried one or more International Dark Sky Association certified models. If your customer cares about light pollution, suggest the OmniMax with shielding or the Area Max with full cutoff to reduce uplight and glare. Evluma, illuminating the pursuit of darkness.